How far has Toyota really come in 30 years?
Today, we have a 2025 6th Gen 4Runner behind us and a 99 3rd Gen 4Runner, and we're going to compare all the different features over the last 30 years.
Let's get to it. All right, so first things, we're not only going to compare how they look, but we're going to compare specific things like the front ends. And actually, they're similar than I initially thought. You'll notice kind of this front, people are calling this the mustache. You actually have some resemblance of that on the 3rd Gen. They just took it and they made it much, much larger. You have a small grill with this slant. You actually have a smaller grill with a slant. The front ends are not that too far apart, which is honestly surprising to me. All right, next up on the front end is cameras. This, of course, has cameras all over the place, multi-terrain monitor, 360 cameras, they're all over. The 3rd Gen, there's not one camera on this thing. I don't even think cameras were invented in 1999. Next up is the valance for miles per gallon. And I like to say smiles per gallon on the 3rd Gen. I think this does get a little bit better MPGs, but this valance is absolutely crazy. Thank you, Toyota. There was no valance on 3rd Gen 4Runners. And last but not least, the hoods. I am utterly blown away that Toyota actually maintained these body lines in the hood are very similar to the body lines in the hood on the 3rd Gen. Of course, different, but similar. Like there's similarities between the two of these. I know I said last but not least, but David brought up a great point. Every panel, every part said Toyota on it. Back in the day, that's how Toyota rolled. So the headlight, the side light, everything says Toyota specifically on this part. Now, the new trucks don't get that, but the 6th Gen does have fancy little 4Runner that actually illuminates when you turn the lights on right here. Onto the side profile styling. Now, there's a lot of similarities. There's also a ton of differences. One big thing to note, this truck, it's way bigger. This is now a mid-size SUV. The thing with that is that changed in 03 with the 4th Gen 4Runner Verse. Before, this was a compact SUV. So trucks just got way bigger in general. The other thing you'll notice is because of safety features, because of all of the new regulations, and this has been happening for years, the windows on this truck are significantly smaller. Visibility is worse, windows are smaller, and there's only so much you can do. So I'm not saying Toyota could have made these big windows. I really don't know if they could have. But the matter of fact is they are smaller. 3rd Gen windows are much larger, especially that rear window, and the visibility is night and day, just like most old Toyotas. All right, so to move on with features and styling, one big thing to note here is the fender flares. Big fender flares on this, also big fender flares on the 3rd Gen. Honestly, they're almost the same size. Now to talk cladding. Basically every 3rd Gen came with door cladding. I don't know why at the time it looked good. You know, doctors drove it, doctors' wives drove a limited 4Runner. The cladding was the real deal. 6th Gen 4Runner Limited, no cladding. There's been no cladding, I don't think, since like early model 4th Gen 4Runner. So it's been like 20 years since you could get cladding. All right, the next thing up on this window, bigger than the rest of the windows, just like this 6th Gen, taller, bigger. A lot of heritage and resemblance built into this 6th Gen window. It's like 1st Gen 4Runner. It's like 2nd Gen 4Runner. 3rd Gen kind of started getting away from it. You know, it doesn't roll up on top, where 6th Gen completely rolls up on top. I would say that the last but not least thing is A-pillar. As you remember or recall on a 5th Gen 4Runner, it had a upright A-pillar, just like the new Land Cruiser 250. I'll walk over here. This A-pillar resembles more of a 4th Gen 4Runner or a 4th Gen Tacoma A-pillar, much more of a slant. They gave that upright slant to the Land Cruiser, and they gave kind of that more slanted A-pillar to the 4Runner. That actually does resemble the 3rd Gen, although the 3rd Gen's A-pillar, it's a little bit more upright. It is slanted. Toyota kind of got away from that slanted A-pillar with the 5th Gen, so now they're bringing it back again, very similar to the 3rd Gen. A big thing to note here between 3rd Gen and 6th Gen is wheel well size. So on 3rd Gen 4Runners, you got to do a whole lot to fit a 33-inch tire. You got to cut, tub, cut the front bumper, cut the back, cut the fender flares. You got to do a lot of work to fit these 33s. So just to note, this is not a stock limited 4Runner. As you may have already seen some of our other videos, This is running a Firestone 33-inch MT2 tire wrapped around a 17-inch wheel. A factory setup is a 265/70 16, so this is a 16-inch that would normally come on this. We have a 2 to 3-inch Dobinson's USA MRR suspension lift kit. We have active off-road bump stops. None of this resembles like a stock limited. So I realize there's some things we can't quite compare between this and that, but what we can compare is wheel well size. So again, these wheel wells relatively small compared to a 6th gen. Now, I'm gonna say it again, this was a compact truck. So this truck in general is smaller. So to say it has smaller wheel wells makes sense. The truck's much, much smaller. But if we jump over to the 6th gen, this 6th gen comes with 20s, whereas the 3rd gen came with 16, so they cranked it up in wheel size. They went way down in tire depth size, so it's like a low pro tire on the limiteds, which if you think of it, it's a limited, right? It's more about comfort and look and style. You're cruising around the city. I mean, it's an all-wheel drive at this point, so it's just a lot different. But the wheel well size in general, across the board on 6th gens, way bigger, even bigger than outgoing 5th gen. You can fit 33s factory, no cutting, piece of cake, a 33, and honestly, almost a 35. On our Tacoma, there's very limited cutting, very limited tubbing to be able to fit a 35. To fit a 35 on a 3rd gen 4Runner limited, I mean, good luck. You got to be David to risk it all to throw 35s on. Let's walk over and talk emblems and emblem placement. So as you can see here, there's no limited emblem. They totally got rid of that. I think the last 5 gens have had some sort of emblem on that pillar. No more. It's now on the lower front door. What's crazy though is this font is so similar to the 3rd gen font. If you come over to the 3rd gen with me, the 3rd gen of course has that emblem placement right here, and the font is really, really similar. I love that Toyota hasn't really strayed too far from like their styling, their fonts. I mean, even the 4Runner font over the last 35 years, it really has not changed all that much. So before we jump into the back ends of both of these trucks, let's quick talk handles, because this has changed dramatically. So on 3rd gen and a lot of these old Toyotas, you had these nice little pocket handles. Easy, simple, almost kind of cute. On the 6th gen, you have these massive, bulky grab handles, which matches the new look of these trucks. It makes sense, resembles 5th gen and other past 4Runners. But again, very, very different. So now let's move on to the back. So the biggest takeaway here, props to Toyota, they kept the rear roll down window. They both have a switch inside. They both can roll down from the back. One rolls down with a key, the other rolls down with 2 little buttons, but they both roll down. That is a huge win. I think David and I and most of us thought, no, if Toyota gets rid of that, it's toast. Like, we don't even want it. Thank you, Toyota, for keeping that. But a couple of the things you'll notice, rear bumpers. The whole thing's plastic, has been for several years now. There's no rear bumper anymore on these new trucks. You do have some nice lines, some nice cutaways, so you could put a steel bumper there, but you don't really have the classic like bumper lines anymore. You do have this angled line that comes up, matches the hatch, goes all the way across, whereas the 3rd gen, you get that as well. You have this rear quarter panel line that matches into the rear hatch. So some resemblance there, some nice heritage there. But this is a steel bumper. There's nothing to it. It's a steel bumper cover. You can pull this thing off, bolt up a legit steel, like put some armor on there, piece of cake. 6th gen, you got to cut and twist and pull and wind to be able to get something on this. So very, very different. You get the classic old small petite 4Runner logo on the back hatch here. And just for the sake of it, because I love it so much, it's bulletproof. It can't ever break. Throw the key in, roll the rear window down, love it. So tail lights, both nice little pocket tail lights, but of course you get, LED, double out 440 tail lights with this, they shine brighter, they're much better. Plastic. With this, you have nice, simple, OG little tail lights that probably cost nothing and never break, and they're just simple. Also plastic. To move on to the rear spoiler, this one, it's a little lackluster in the quality, but you do have the windshield wiper nice and tucked up in there, versus on this, we're missing the metal spoiler, but it's legitimately like a handle Like back in the day on our old third gens, there's like a hole right here to show this tail light. You'd grab that, jump on the back bumper. It's a piece of metal. So very different than that. And then of course you have your nice little windshield wiper, not tucked away whatsoever, just on the back. Simple, old, OG. You can't forget about the hitch. This hitch, for some reason, Toyota, I think, built this entire truck and then said, we forgot to put a hitch on it. And so they bolted a hitch to the back of the frame. It sits underneath. It kind of acts as protection, which is nice, but it's there. It's very, very visible. And all the aftermarket ones look the same. The 6th gen, like previous models, they tuck it up in there. It's nice. And frankly, this is actually taller than the 3rd gen, even though the 3rd gen's lifted bigger tires and everything. This actually is higher. There's more clearance with the rear hitch on this, simply because it's tucked up and it's bolted onto the back of the frame versus underneath the frame. And last but not least, the emblem placement, totally different on this truck. You still have your nice handle right here to open up the hatch. Same identical thing, handle right here to open up the hatch, but all your emblems are just a little bit different. You have a nice big 4Runner across the bottom, whereas you have this small, petite 4Runner, classic OG 4Runner right there.
All right, you wouldn't believe it, but the 3rd gen actually has a bigger motor than that car. So they open kind of the same, pretty much same spot. You know, 3rd gen, you got the classic hood prop, never gonna break, always works. But under here, you got the 3.4 5VZ FE, one of the most reliable motors ever made by Toyota. It puts out, I don't know, 183 horsepower and like 217 foot-pounds of torque. And you know, you gotta be on it at like 4,800 RPM to get all that power. So it's kind of gutless, but she kind of rips at 211,000 miles or 220,000 miles, somewhere around there. This thing absolutely gets it. Maybe we'll turbo it one day. But this truck comes with the turbo from the factory. So in 30 years, this is a limited, and you still get a basic hood prop. Anyways, under here, you got a lot of electrical stuff. It's kind of an ugly engine bay, you know. At least you got the nice 3.4 over there. But what do we have in here? 2.4 turbo hybrid. So this thing, you gain 100 horsepower. So I think it's like 278 horsepower, 317 foot-pounds of torque, somewhere around there. This is a non-hybrid, so it still gets it, but it's also still kind of gutless. The 8-speed trans helps a lot in this, whereas the 4-speed, kind of a dog in the 3rd gen. You know, it puts in work, but it's a dog. All right, circle back. You only gain 100 horsepower in 30 years of Toyota.
All right, hard cut. We just dropped some new merch. Go check it out. It's now live, team4runner.com.
So before we start diving into the interiors of both these trucks, on the exterior, the one final difference, 3rd gen, you have a power antenna. So turn on the car, antenna raises up. If you want to turn the radio off, raises down. On trails, super helpful, really nice. Over on the 6th gen, I mean, you can't even see it, but you got this kind of fin up here, and it kind of is like a shark fin. And it's just one more thing that gets in the way of a roof rack when you're trying to put a roof rack on. So now that we're on the interior, let's take a look at some of the similarities and some of the differences between the two models. There's a 30-year gap between the two, so obviously this isn't going to be filled with tech like that one is. So we're only going to take a look at a couple things, not get super nitty-gritty here. All right, some of the differences that you're going to notice right off the bat in the 3rd gen is you have a real J-shifter transfer case. It's a real manual transfer case, so you can put in 4-wheel drive. You don't have electronic actuators, all that BS, real stuff. You also have a real handbrake. So if you want to rip some shitties, you can go rip some shitties. And kind of the last thing you're going to notice on the interior of the 3rd gen, that's a big difference, is you have a grab handle here, not up here, and there's absolutely no tech. So you have your basic climate control and a basic CD player. It's about as bare bones as it gets. Here are 4 similar things before we move over to the 6th gen. All right, you're gonna notice the 4Runner limited floor mats. So those, you're gonna see that on the 6th gen. Branded floor mats. Next, brown leather interior. And this is adjustable seats, electronic adjustable seats, so you can move every which way you would desire with lumbar support, the whole nine. You have that over there. The next thing you're going to notice that's similar, you have a sunroof. Nothing too crazy. It's not a double sunroof, but it's a sunroof regardless. Now let's jump into the 6th gen. Over 30 years, you still get the same brown leather seats. They're adjustable, just like the old ones. They're not any better, not any worse, but you still get brown leather adjustable seats. Next, you have the same exact floor mats. They have not changed at all. And then last but not least, you have the same tiny little sunroof. I mean, it might honestly be smaller in this due to all the safety features, but some things don't change. Okay, we're in the back seat of the 3rd gen. Pretty simple here. You get way more legroom in the 3rd gen. Don't believe me? Find out for yourself. You also get rear heat control as a passenger, so you get rear heat and you get control of it. And last but not least, there was never a 3rd row seat option in the 3rd gen 4Runners. Okay, now we're in the back of the 6th gen. Brown leather interior, way less legroom. I mean, pretty visible, but get a tape measure, find out for yourself. You also don't have any control over your climate. This is a limited, folks. You're paying 60 grand and you don't get any rear climate control. Unbelievable. But you do get USB-Cs, kind of nice. So a little bit of tech and a normal house outlet. It's kind of nice. Other than that, you also get a 3rd row. I'm pretty sure the 5th gens also had 3rd row option. All right, to wrap this up, we're gonna open the backs of these 4Runners up and see what's back here. First things first, automatic tailgate. Looking back here, what you're gonna notice first, you have a real wall outlet. In the back of the 3rd gen, it's a standard opening tailgate. It's got gas struts, always works. First thing you're gonna notice, 12 volt. So next, this Limited has 3rd row seats, whereas old Limiteds never got 3rd row seats. The elephant in the room is which cargo space is bigger between the two. And we brought out the tape measure, and no matter which way you put it, wider, deeper, taller, the 3rd gen has a little bit bigger cargo space. Last but not least back here, the comparison that's gonna blow all your minds. Back here, comparison of them all. It's a little bit different location on this one. And the 3rd gen bottle jack. They are damn near identical. Have not changed in probably ever. So after all that, which one would you rather have? The 3rd gen or the 6th gen? Let us know if we missed anything in the comments. Until next time, we'll see you later.